I lay perfectly still in the darkness of our bedroom, my eyes closed, my breathing even and slow. Robert thought I was asleep. That's what he wanted to believe as he whispered into his phone just outside our bedroom door. Tomorrow night, at the memorial service. Everyone will be there, all her father's collector friends, the museum board, everyone. That's when I'll do it. His voice was low, almost gleeful. She'll be so focused on her precious father's legacy, she won't see it coming. A woman's voice crackled through the speaker, too faint for me to make out the words, but I caught her laugh. Young, bright, unfamiliar. I know, Robert continued. 26 years is long enough. Once I get half that gallery and the art collection, we can finally start our life together, the lawyers said. What were they plotting? And why tomorrow, of all nights at my father's memorial service? I waited until I heard him slip into the guest room before I let myself breathe normally. My hands were shaking. My father had been gone only 3 months, and tomorrow we were unveiling the collection he donated to establish a permanent exhibition in his name. 200 guests were expected: gallery owners, museum curators, collectors who'd known him for 40 years. And my husband was planning something he thought would devastate me. The next morning, Robert was all smiles over coffee. Big day today, Maria. Your father would be so proud of what you've built. I studied him across our kitchen island, the same kitchen we'd renovated 15 years ago, in the brownstone I'd inherited from my grandmother. Robert was 51, still handsome in that polished way real estate developers cultivate. His silver hair, his expensive suit, his practiced concern. I just want it to be perfect, I said quietly. The collection means everything to me. Of course it does. He reached across to squeeze my hand. His wedding ring caught the morning light. 26 years. We'd built a life together, or so I'd thought. I'll be right there with you. But his phone buzzed, and I saw the name flash on the screen before he snatched it away. S. The same S I'd seen late-night texts from. The same S who called when Robert said he was showing properties on weekends. Client, he said smoothly. They're very demanding. I nodded and returned to my coffee, but my mind was racing. Whatever he planned to announce tonight, I needed to be ready. I needed to understand what I was dealing with. That afternoon, while Robert was allegedly at a site inspection, I did something I'd never done in 26 years of marriage. I went through his office. His laptop was password protected, but his iPad wasn't. And there, in his messages, I found her. Sierra, 28 years old. She worked at the gallery, my gallery. She'd been the intern I'd hired 6 months ago because she had a master's degree in art history and spoke 3 languages and seemed so eager to learn. The messages went back 5 months. Can't wait until you're free of her. The memorial is perfect timing, public, dramatic. She'll be too shocked to fight back. Your lawyer said you're entitled to half the gallery's value, right? That's millions. Once you announce tomorrow, we can finally be open about us. I sat in Robert's leather chair, staring at the screen, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, not yet. That would come later. Right now, I felt something sharper, clearer, calculation. I took screenshots. Every message. Then I made a phone call to someone I'd consulted once before, years ago, when I was setting up the gallery's structure. Patricia Chen, please. Tell her it's Maria Castellano. Tell her it's urgent. Patricia was the best estate attorney in New York. She'd helped my father set up his trust, and she'd helped me navigate the complexities of turning our family gallery into a professional operation. Maria. Patricia's voice was warm but concerned. What's wrong? I need to know exactly what my husband is entitled to if he files for divorce, specifically regarding the gallery and my father's art collection. There was a pause. May I ask what's prompted this? He's planning to announce he wants a divorce tomorrow night, at my father's memorial service, in front of 200 people, and he seems to think he's entitled to half of everything. Another pause, longer this time. Maria, when did your father establish the Harrison Family Trust? 30 years ago. And the gallery? The building has been in my family since 1952. The trust owns it. I'm the trustee. And your father's personal art collection, the one being unveiled tomorrow? He donated it to the trust last year, before he passed. For the permanent exhibition. I heard Patricia exhale. Maria, I need you to listen carefully. Unless I'm very mistaken, your husband isn't entitled to any of it. The gallery, the building, the art collection, if they're all held in the family trust, they're separate property, not marital assets. Something loosened in my chest. You're certain? I need to review the documents. But yes, I'm certain. The trust was established long before your marriage, and trust assets don't become marital property. Your husband may not understand that. His lawyer told him he'd get half. Then his lawyer is either incompetent or lying to him. Patricia's voice sharpened. Maria, if he's planning to announce this publicly, we need to be strategic. Can you come to my office right now? We have work to do. 3 hours later, I understood exactly where I stood. The gallery building, trust property. The art collection, including the $5.4 million worth being unveiled tomorrow, trust property. Even my salary as gallery director was mine alone. I'd never commingled funds with Robert. What was marital property? The brownstone, but it had been my grandmother's, deeded to me before marriage. Our cabin upstate, jointly owned. His retirement accounts, my retirement accounts. The cars. If he wants a divorce, Patricia said, he'll get half the cabin, half the cars, and his fair share of retirement funds. That's it. The gallery is untouchable. And if he announces publicly, tomorrow night? Patricia smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Then he'll humiliate himself in front of the entire New York art community. Maria, half the people at that memorial service are your father's collectors and colleagues. They're also Robert's real estate clients. Making this kind of scene, at this kind of event, he'll destroy his own reputation. He doesn't realize that. No. He's thinking like a developer, assets, valuations, divisions. He's not thinking about social capital, about relationships. She leaned forward. What do you want to do? I thought about my father, about how he'd built the gallery from nothing, how he'd spent 50 years cultivating relationships, earning trust, creating beauty, how he'd taught me that integrity was everything in this business. And I thought about Robert, planning to weaponize my grief for his own gain. I want to be prepared, I said. I want to know exactly what to say when he makes his announcement. Then let's prepare. The memorial service was beautiful. The gallery's main exhibition space had been transformed: soft lighting, flowers, photographs of my father with artists and collectors spanning 5 decades. The donated collection gleamed under spotlights: a Rothko, 2 Calders, a Hockney, a Basquiat from his early period, and a dozen other pieces my father had collected with love and care. 200 people filled the space. I recognized faces from Christie's, from Sotheby's, from the Museum of Modern Art. 3 of Robert's biggest real estate clients were there, wealthy collectors who'd bought properties through him specifically because of our family's reputation in the art world. I wore my mother's pearls and my father's favorite color, deep blue. Robert stood beside me in his dark suit, playing the supportive husband. The tribute speeches were moving. Gallery directors who'd known my father, artists he'd championed. I spoke last, my voice steady as I thanked everyone for honoring his legacy. My father believed art creates connections, I said. That beauty brings people together. This collection represents his life's passion, and I'm honored to share it with all of you tonight. Applause filled the room. I stepped back from the podium, and then Robert stepped forward. If I could have everyone's attention for just one more moment, he said, his voice carrying across the gallery. I froze. This was it. I have an announcement to make, and I think Arthur would have appreciated honesty, so I'm going to be direct. Robert turned to look at me, and his expression was almost pitying. Maria, I've tried to be patient. I've tried to be understanding, but I've lived in your family's shadow for 26 years. Your father's legacy, your grandmother's building, your mother's traditions. It's always been about the Castellanos, never about us, never about me. The room had gone completely silent. I want a divorce, he continued. I want my fair share of what we've built together, which means half the gallery's value, half this art collection, and half of everything else. I'm entitled to that much after 26 years. Someone gasped. I saw faces turning toward me, expressions of shock and sympathy. Robert's voice softened, became almost kind. I know this is painful, Maria, but it's time we both moved on with our lives. I've already consulted with my attorney, and I'll be filing papers next week. I wanted to tell you publicly because you deserve honesty, and because these people," he gestured around the room, "they should know that the Castellano Gallery is about to undergo some significant changes." He actually smiled at me, confident, certain he'd won. The room waited for me to collapse, to cry, to flee. Instead, I walked calmly to the podium. "Thank you, Robert," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I appreciate your honesty. And you're right, these people deserve to know the truth." I looked out at the crowd, saw Patricia Chen in the back, nodding slightly, saw Robert's 3 major clients in the 3rd row, their faces carefully neutral. Since we're being honest, let me clarify a few things. I kept my tone pleasant, almost conversational. The Harrison Family Trust, which owns this gallery building, was established 31 years ago by my father. It's a separate legal entity. This building has been in my family since 1952. The art collection you see here tonight, all $5.4 million worth, was donated to the trust last year by my father, specifically to create this permanent exhibition in his name. I paused. Let that sink in. None of it, not the building, not the collection, not the gallery itself, is marital property. The trust is untouchable. I turned to Robert, whose confident smile was starting to falter. "Your attorney should have explained that to you. If they didn't, you might want to consult with someone more competent." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "As for everything else," I continued, "we do have marital assets. The cabin upstate, which we bought together 15 years ago, our retirement accounts, the cars. I'm perfectly willing to divide those fairly and equitably." Robert's face had gone pale. "Maria, but there's one more thing everyone should know." My voice didn't shake. "The reason Robert is so confident about moving on with his life is because he's been having an affair with Sierra Chen, who works here at the gallery, who is, coincidentally, 23 years younger than me." I saw Sierra near the back wall, her face draining of color. Sierra was hired 6 months ago as an intern. She has access to gallery files, donor information, collection inventories. I found their text messages this afternoon, messages where they discussed my father's death, this memorial service, and Robert's plan to announce his divorce tonight in front of all of you. The murmur became shocked whispers. They thought this moment, my father's memorial, would be the perfect time to humiliate me. They thought I'd be too grief-stricken to respond. They thought I'd just accept Robert's demands. I looked directly at Robert. "You forgot something. You forgot that my father spent 50 years teaching me about this business, about relationships, reputation, and integrity. You forgot that half the people in this room have known me since I was a child. And you forgot that family trusts exist precisely to protect generational assets from situations exactly like this." The silence was absolute. "So here's what's going to happen, Robert. You'll get exactly what you're entitled to under New York law: half the cabin, half the cars, your fair share of the retirement accounts. That's it. You'll get nothing from the gallery, nothing from the collection, and nothing from the trust." I turned to address the room. "I apologize for this scene at my father's memorial. It wasn't what I planned for tonight. But my father always said, the truth matters more than appearances. And I think he'd want all of you to know exactly what kind of man my husband has chosen to be." Then I stepped down from the podium and walked directly to Patricia Chen. "We're leaving," I said quietly. "Handle whatever needs handling." She nodded. "Already on it." As I walked out of the gallery, my family's gallery, I heard the eruption of voices behind me. But I didn't look back. Not at Robert, not at Sierra, not at any of it. I went home to my grandmother's brownstone, made myself tea, and sat in the kitchen where I'd had coffee with Robert that morning. And finally, I let myself cry. The next week was chaos. Robert moved out to Sierra's apartment, I later learned. His attorney contacted Patricia with divorce papers that demanded half the gallery's value. Patricia's response was swift and thorough. She provided documentation of the trust structure, the chain of ownership, the legal precedents. Robert's attorney backed down within 48 hours. But the real consequences came from elsewhere. Within 3 days, all 3 of Robert's major real estate clients terminated their contracts with him. I learned this from Margaret Holloway, who'd been collecting contemporary art for 30 years and who'd bought a $12 million penthouse through Robert 2 years earlier. "I can't work with someone who would do that," she told me over coffee. At Arthur's memorial service, Maria, your father's memorial, it's unconscionable. And the affair with your employee? The calculation behind it? That's not someone I trust with my business. The story spread through the art world like wildfire. New York's high-end real estate market is small, tight-knit, built entirely on relationships and reputation. By the end of the month, Robert's business had dried up. Sierra was fired. Not by me, I recused myself from that decision, but the gallery's board was unanimous. She'd violated ethics policies, accessed confidential information, and participated in a scheme to defraud the trust. She was escorted out the same day. She tried to stay with Robert, I heard, but when his income evaporated and the reality of their situation became clear, she left. Last I knew, she'd moved back to Ohio. The divorce took 6 months. Robert fought for spousal support and was denied I earned more than him, and the prenup we'd signed at my father's insistence, ironically, was airtight. He got exactly what I'd said he would: half the cabin's value, half the car's, his retirement accounts. The cabin was worth $400,000. His half was $200,000. After lawyer fees, he walked away with maybe $150,000. Sierra had thought she was getting a millionaire. Instead, she got a disgraced real estate developer approaching retirement with no business and no prospects in the industry he'd worked in for 30 years. As for me, I threw myself into the gallery. The publicity from Robert's disaster actually increased attendance. There's no such thing as bad publicity in the art world, apparently. Donations increased. We were able to expand the permanent collection. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I opened a second location in Chelsea. I named it the Arthur Castellano Gallery. At the opening, Margaret Holloway found me near the Rothko we'd acquired specifically for the new space. "Your father would be proud," she said. "I hope so. Not just of the gallery, Maria, of how you handled yourself. Dignity under fire, that's rare." I thought about that night at the memorial. About Robert's confident smile, his certainty that he'd won. About how he'd planned to humiliate me in my moment of grief, to weaponize my father's death for his own gain. "My father taught me that in this business, reputation is everything," I said. "Integrity is everything." Robert forgot that. Or maybe he never understood it. And now? Now he's learning, the hard way. A year later, I heard Robert had moved to Florida. He was selling timeshares. The art world, the high-end real estate world, those doors were closed to him. He'd burned those bridges himself, in front of 200 witnesses. I never saw him again. I'm 63 now, and the gallery is thriving. We represent emerging artists, established names, and we've become known for our ethical practices and our commitment to the artists we work with. My father's legacy, his real legacy, not just the art collection, continues. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled that night, if I wish I'd done it privately, quietly, with less drama. But I think about Robert standing at that podium, so certain of his power, so confident he could take what my family had built over 3 generations. I think about how he chose my father's memorial, my moment of grief, as the perfect time to strike. And I remember my father's voice. The truth matters more than appearances. Robert wanted honesty. He wanted a public announcement. I gave him exactly what he asked for. And the truth about trust law, about reputation, about the consequences of betrayal destroyed him far more thoroughly than I ever could have planned. That's not revenge. That's just karma. And sometimes, karma needs a little help from a really good attorney and a family trust established 31 years ago by a man who understood exactly what mattered. I still run the galleries, both of them. I still wear my mother's pearls and my father's favorite color. And every time I walk through the permanent collection, past the Rothko and the Calders and the Basquiat, I remember that night. The night my husband tried to take everything. And the night he learned that some legacies are protected by more than just love. They're protected by law. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and watch for more true stories from my life. I'll see you in the next one.